When a courtroom turns into chaos and secrets spill under oath, even the strongest bonds can break. What really happened between Chrissy and Jim Jones? And why is Camron's lawyer shaking the foundation of their story? Get ready for the scandal they tried to keep quiet, until now. The entertainment world thrives on drama, and few names have been more entangled in recent controversy than Camron, Jim Jones, and Chrissy Lampkin. What began as whispers in the blogosphere erupted into full-blown chaos when Camron's lawyer reportedly exposed Chrissy for fabricating a pregnancy, and things only escalated from there. While the story seems like a perfect script for reality TV, it unfolded in real courtrooms, in front of cameras, fans, and industry insiders. But to truly understand the magnitude of what went down, we need to rewind the clock and uncover the layers of a tangled history that led to the courtroom explosion. Camron and Jim Jones, both key members of the iconic rap group Dipset, have a brotherhood that dates back decades. Rising out of Harlem, they built their reputations on loyalty, bravado, and authenticity. Their bond, once considered unbreakable, began to show cracks in the 2010s when rumors of tension between the two became public. Interviews and passive-aggressive Instagram posts only added fuel to the fire, though they later made attempts to patch things up, including joint appearances and nostalgic performances. Their friendship never fully returned to its original strength. That simmering tension played a key role in what was to come. Chrissy Lampkin, known for her long-term relationship with Jim Jones and her appearances on Love and Hip Hop New York, was often seen as the glue trying to hold Jim's chaotic world together. Outspoken and passionate, Chrissy never shied away from confrontation, especially when it came to protecting her man. But in recent years, fans began to question the authenticity of their storylines. Were Chrissy and Jim genuinely in love and planning a future, or were they milking the drama for screen time and relevance? These doubts intensified when Chrissy announced she was pregnant. The news shocked fans, as the couple had long expressed uncertainty about having children. Support poured in, but so did skepticism. The timing of Chrissy's announcement raised eyebrows. It came right as Camron was promoting a new project and gaining renewed media attention. Industry insiders speculated the pregnancy reveal might be a PR move, not just to overshadow Camron, but to deflect from rumors that Jim and Chrissy's relationship was on the rocks. The blogs began to buzz. Screenshots of Chrissy's posts, speculations about due dates, and theories about motivations flooded Twitter and Reddit. Still, no solid evidence emerged to contradict Chrissy's claim, and the public largely took her word at face value, until Camron's legal team stepped in. Camron had remained relatively quiet about the situation, only making vague comments about people faking real life for clout. But when his lawyer suddenly requested a court hearing related to defamation and manipulation of public image, fans knew something serious was brewing. The case, initially assumed to be about music, rights quickly took a surprising turn. It was not just about business, it was personal. According to leaked court documents, Camron's lawyer accused Chrissy of staging a false pregnancy to manipulate public sympathy and media narratives, especially to paint Camron as a jealous outsider trying to undermine their happiness. The court allowed the filing to proceed, citing potential reputational harm and emotional distress. Social media exploded. Was this all just an elaborate game? And why would Chrissy fake something so serious? As the court date approached, public interest reached a fever pitch. TMZ, The Shade Room, and Hollywood Unlocked all camped outside the courthouse hoping to catch a glimpse of the trio involved. Jim Jones remained mostly silent, only posting cryptic messages about loyalty and betrayal. Chrissy, however, doubled down, insisting in interviews that she had nothing to hide and calling the claims slanderous. On the day of the hearing, tension filled the air. The courtroom was packed with journalists, bloggers, and curious fans. Camron arrived calmly, dressed sharp, exuding confidence. Chrissy walked in with a glare that could cut glass, while Jim looked visibly uncomfortable, caught between two people he cared deeply about. The judge opened proceedings by summarizing the unusual nature of the case. Not criminal, but a civil issue with significant public implications. Then Camron's lawyer presented what would become the most talked about revelation in recent entertainment memory. Using carefully documented medical records, the lawyer argued that Chrissy had not only fabricated her pregnancy but had used doctored images and paid for digital sonograms to make her claim appear real. The room gasped. Screenshots of Chrissy's social media posts were shown alongside evidence of inconsistencies. Image metadata that didn't match up. Statements from former friends who had distanced themselves from her during the period in question, and even a timeline that showed Chrissy allegedly drinking at events when she claimed to be several months pregnant. Though the defense tried to challenge the credibility of the sources, the narrative was compelling. As the evidence piled up, the courtroom's energy shifted. Chrissy, who had started the day defiant, now appeared tense, clutching Jim's hand. Jim, for his part, looked like he was struggling to process what he was hearing. He shook his head repeatedly and eventually had to step out of the courtroom for a few minutes. Though he returned, his demeanor had completely changed. What was supposed to be a legal skirmish over image rights had turned into a highly personal dismantling of a private life, all under the public eye. Outside the courtroom, fans and critics alike debated the ethics of airing such intimate issues so publicly. Was Camron right to pursue this? Was Chrissy just trying to protect her relationship? Or had the line between reality and performance finally blurred too much? The blogs went into overdrive. Memes circulated, think pieces were written, and former cast members from Love and Hip Hop chimed in with their own takes. Some defended Chrissy, claiming she was being targeted unfairly. Others believed Camron had every right to defend his reputation, especially if he was being portrayed as bitter or jealous due to a false narrative. As the day came to a close, the judge adjourned proceedings, stating more evidence needed to be reviewed before a decision could be made. But the damage was already done. The public no longer saw Chrissy's pregnancy as a heartfelt announcement. It was now a question mark, a cloud of doubt hovering over her and Jim's entire relationship. Camron left the courthouse with a subtle smirk, saying nothing to keep reporters while Chrissy and Jim quickly exited through a side door, avoiding the cameras. What had started as an internet rumor had escalated into a legal spectacle. And while this was only the beginning of the courtroom saga, the real story was what it revealed about fame, trust, and how easily the lines between love, loyalty, and manipulation can blur when the whole world is watching. The next hearing promised even more drama, and fans everywhere were already marking their calendars. Whatever was coming next, one thing was certain. No one involved would come out of it the same, and began with a tension that seemed to hang in the very air of the courtroom. The judge called the court to order, and Camron's lawyer wasted no time in launching into the next phase of his argument. What had been a media frenzy outside turned into sheer chaos within the walls of the courthouse. The lawyer presented new evidence, direct communications allegedly between Chrissy and a PR consultant, discussing the timing and rollout of the pregnancy announcement. These texts, if authentic, showed a deliberate attempt to coordinate the reveal to align with Camron's album launch, seemingly to hijack his media spotlight. This revelation sent ripples through the courtroom. Chrissy's legal team objected furiously, demanding verification of the messages. The judge paused proceedings to allow a forensic analyst to confirm the origin of the texts. While the court waited, whispers of disbelief filled the room. Jim Jones sat stone-faced, eyes forward, but clearly overwhelmed. When the analyst returned and verified the authenticity of the messages, the courtroom fell into a stunned silence. Then came the bombshell, a recorded phone call between Chrissy and an anonymous confidant in which Chrissy allegedly admitted the pregnancy wasn't real, but justified it by saying she was saving her relationship. Her voice, unmistakable and emotional, outlined a plan to reel Jim back in during a rough patch in their relationship. The recording played on the courtroom speakers, every word echoing off the walls. Jim turned visibly pale, his jaw clenched tightly. Suddenly, he stood up. "This is too much," he said, his voice shaking. The judge warned him to remain calm, but Jim had already lost composure. "I believed in her. I believed all of this." His outburst startled the entire courtroom. Security gently escorted him out to regain control of the scene. Cameras outside captured him storming out, his eyes full of anger and confusion. It was a moment that would be replayed and analyzed endlessly online. The hearing resumed after a short recess, but the emotional damage was clear. Chrissy sat alone at her table, her usual fire extinguished. Her lawyers attempted damage control, painting her actions as those of a woman under emotional distress, driven by love, not malice. Not malice. But the prosecution was unrelenting. They brought in a former love and hip-hop producer who testified under oath that Chrissy had previously discussed staging dramatic events for ratings and attention. According to the producer, this wasn't the first time reality and fabrication had blurred for Chrissy. Outside the courtroom, the media had a field day. Every major entertainment outlet ran with the story, and hashtags like Charge Chrissy Exposed and Charge Jim Jones Breakdown trended for days. Think pieces emerged on the pressures of reality TV, the toxicity of celebrity culture, and the blurred line between authenticity and performance. Fans debated passionately in comment sections and Twitter threads. Some felt deep sympathy for Jim, others questioned Camron's motives. But the one consensus was this: the entire situation was tragic, riveting, and deeply human. In the aftermath of that day, Jim Jones disappeared from the public eye for nearly a week. When he finally resurfaced in a brief Instagram Live, he didn't say much. Just a simple, "I'm good. Just needed to clear my head." But his silence spoke volumes. Meanwhile, Chrissy also went quiet. Her usual social media activity was gone. No new posts, no statements, just silence. Camron, on the other hand, kept it short and cryptic. He posted a single line: "Truth always wins." But while the public digested this spectacle, legal teams remained hard at work behind the scenes. In the days following Jim's courtroom breakdown, sources close to him revealed that he was staying with family, contemplating major changes in his life, both personal and professional. One insider claimed that Jim was heartbroken and embarrassed, not just by Chrissy's alleged deception, but by the public exposure of something he thought was sacred. Meanwhile, Chrissy's defense prepared a new strategy. They claimed the recording had been taken out of context and insisted the pregnancy had been real, but tragically ended in miscarriage. The story shift sparked immediate backlash. Many saw it as a convenient pivot designed to reclaim public sympathy. Critics questioned the timing, the lack of medical records presented during the earlier hearing, and the sudden silence from Chrissy's side once the allegations surfaced. Camron's team, however, wasn't buying it. They doubled down, gathering more witnesses from Chrissy's inner circle, former assistants, stylists, and even a family member, some of whom were willing to testify under subpoena. The court filings hinted that these individuals had knowledge of behind-the-scenes efforts to maintain the false pregnancy narrative, even when Chrissy allegedly knew the truth. The judge ruled that their testimonies would be heard in the next session, ensuring the courtroom would remain the center of media attention. The emotional toll on Jim was undeniable. Paparazzi caught glimpses of him in New York, looking distant, usually alone and avoiding questions. Fans speculated whether this would mark the end of his relationship with Chrissy after nearly 2 decades. Rumors swirled about a potential tell-all interview or even a documentary series chronicling the events, offers that media companies were allegedly throwing at both Jim and Camron. Meanwhile, the hip-hop community remained divided. Some artists came to Chrissy's defense, arguing that women often suffer undue scrutiny in public relationships and that the court's treatment of her bordered on character assassination. Others took Camron's side, stating that in a culture built on realness, fabricating something as sensitive as a pregnancy for clout was crossing a sacred line. Even within Dipset circles, lines were being drawn. In a rare move, Camron sat down for an exclusive podcast interview where he finally broke his silence. He didn't gloat, nor did he smear Chrissy further. Instead, he spoke about trust, about being dragged into a narrative he didn't create, and how the falsehoods affected not just him, but his family. "I wasn't trying to destroy nobody," he said. "I just wasn't going to sit there and let lies ruin my name while everybody out here thinking I'm the villain." The interview went viral. Clips of his calm yet direct words were shared across platforms, reframing public perception. Yet again, many who had been on the fence began to shift in Camron's favor, praising him for standing firm in a storm of chaos. Meanwhile, Chrissy remained silent, with only her legal team speaking for her. Her attorneys filed motions to limit further character evidence, claiming that the trial was turning into a media circus and putting her through emotional trauma. But the judge denied most of these motions, stating that the truth had to come out, regardless of optics. As the court prepared for the next and final hearing, one last twist was rumored. Jim Jones might take the stand. While he had previously resisted being dragged into the case formally. Insiders said he was considering it not to help either party, but to speak his truth and reclaim control of his own narrative. If true, his testimony could change everything. Fans were glued to their screens, with live stream views of the courthouse hitting record highs. Social media debates turned into live Twitter spaces, clubhouse rooms, and YouTube reaction streams. Everyone had an opinion, and everyone was waiting for the final chapter. But underneath all the noise was a real human tragedy. A couple broken apart by fame, a friendship tested beyond repair, and a woman caught between defending her reputation and facing possible consequences for taking her reality TV role too far. The next court session promised resolution, but no matter what the verdict said, the damage was already done. Trust was shattered, reputations were altered, and the entertainment world was left with a cautionary tale about the cost of performance, perception, and the weaponization of personal stories for public power. The explosion wasn't over yet, but everyone could feel the aftershocks. The final day of court arrived with the kind of buzz usually reserved for major movie premieres. Reporters crowded the courthouse steps, and fans streamed the live proceedings like it was the season finale of a hit reality show. Everyone knew something big was coming, and they were right. It started with a stunning move. Jim Jones took the stand. He walked into the courtroom wearing a dark suit, no jewelry, no entourage, just himself. The courtroom grew quiet as he sat down and took the oath. What followed was not a legal defense or a personal attack. It was raw emotion. Jim spoke softly but with weight. He admitted he hadn't planned to testify, but after everything that had happened, he felt the truth needed to come directly from him. He began by talking about his love for Chrissy, how they had weathered storms together, built a life, dreamed of starting a family. His voice cracked when he talked about the day she told him she was pregnant. "I believed her," he said. "I wanted to believe it so bad." He went on to say he had no reason to doubt her, not until the inconsistencies started piling up. Missed appointments, vague explanations, and eventually the devastating realization that it might not be true. Jim said he never signed on to use his personal life as a storyline. That wasn't his style. But Chrissy had always been a little more comfortable in front of the cameras. She loved the spotlight, he admitted, and sometimes it loved her back. Other times, it burned. His testimony painted a picture of a man torn between love and betrayal. He didn't attack her, didn't insult her. He just laid bare the pain of finding out the woman he loved may have lied to him. Not just once, but in front of the world. His final words echoed through the room. "I don't hate her. I just don't know who she is anymore." The judge called a recess, and the court sat in silence, stunned by the gravity of Jim's words. Outside, the video of his testimony went viral within minutes. Social media exploded again, this time with overwhelming support for Jim. Hashtags like #JagStandWithJim and #JagTruthInLove started trending, and even celebrities posted messages of sympathy and admiration. When court resumed, Chrissy's legal team tried to regain footing. They argued that while Chrissy may have exaggerated the situation, there was no intent to harm. They claimed her actions were rooted in fear of losing her partner, her public identity, her relevance. They asked the court to consider the psychological toll of being in a high-profile relationship under constant scrutiny. They pleaded for compassion, but the prosecution had one last piece of evidence: a hidden camera clip taken during the filming of an unaired Love and Hip Hop pilot, where Chrissy is heard saying, "As long as people keep watching, we're winning. That's all that matters." The clip wasn't dramatic, it was casual, almost careless, but it spoke volumes. The idea that fame had become more important than truth now had a face and a voice. In closing arguments, Camron's lawyer reinforced that this case wasn't about punishing Chrissy for personal decisions. It was about accountability, about the damage false narratives can cause, not just to one person, but to careers, reputations, and mental health. He asked the court to recognize that actions have consequences even for public figures. The defense, in turn, asked for leniency. They reminded the court that Chrissy had already been punished in the public eye, that she had received threats, lost deals, and become a target. They warned that turning this into a legal precedent could open the door to endless lawsuits in the entertainment industry, where fiction and reality often blur. The judge took a long pause before speaking. The courtroom fell into an eerie stillness. Everyone was waiting. Then, finally, the decision came. Chrissy was found guilty of defamation and intentional emotional distress. She was ordered to pay damages to Camron and issue a formal public apology. The court also ordered her to participate in counseling and complete community service related to women's advocacy and media accountability. It wasn't a criminal conviction, but it was a public reckoning. When the verdict was read, Chrissy didn't cry. She nodded, looked down, and whispered something no one could hear. Her lawyers quietly gathered their things. Camron, meanwhile, stood firm, arms crossed. He didn't smile. He just nodded slightly, as if the weight of months of chaos had finally lifted. Outside, the media exploded again. Headlines blared. Chrissy loses in court. Jim Jones breaks silence, and Camron vindicated. It was the end of a scandal, or the beginning of its legacy. In the weeks that followed, life moved on, but nothing was the same. Chrissy released a carefully worded apology online, where she expressed remorse, accepted responsibility, and asked for privacy as she rebuilt her life. She also announced she was stepping away from the spotlight to focus on personal healing. Camron, on the other hand, saw a resurgence in his career. His latest album shot to the top of streaming charts, and his interview clips were dissected in think pieces on hip-hop integrity. He stayed mostly quiet, letting his music do the talking. But one tweet stood out: "God don't sleep, neither do receipts." Jim Jones kept it low-key. He returned to the studio, dropped a surprise freestyle addressing the situation, and thanked fans for standing by him. The track, filled with vulnerability and pain, became an anthem for resilience. His followers praised his growth, and for many, it marked the beginning of a new chapter for him, one defined by honesty, strength, and clarity. As for the broader cultural impact, the case sparked conversations far beyond celebrity gossip. Panels were hosted discussing the ethics of reality TV, mental health in the entertainment industry, and the role of social media in public trials. What started as a scandal had evolved into a movement, one that questioned the price of visibility and the weight of narrative control. And even though the story was now legally over, its echoes lingered. People remembered the faces in the courtroom, the tremble in Jim's voice, the crack in Chrissy's facade, and the silent, steady stare of Camron as the truth unfolded. It was more than drama. It was a modern cautionary tale about trust, deception, and the high stakes of living life in front of an audience. In the end, there were no true winners. Only lessons. And maybe that was the point, that beyond the headlines, beyond the trending topics and viral videos, there were real people hurting, healing, and learning. Because when the cameras go off, the truth remains. And for those who live in the spotlight, the cost of that truth can be everything. If this story had you on the edge of your seat, now it's your turn to sound off. Do you think Chrissy's actions were just a mistake made under pressure? Or a calculated move that crossed the line? Was Camron right to take it to court? And most importantly, where does Jim Jones go from here? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We're reading every single one. Don't forget to hit that like button if you think the truth matters, and subscribe if you want more deep dives into the stories the industry doesn't want you to hear. Make sure to turn on the bell notification so you never miss the next twist. Because if you think this was wild, just wait for what we've got coming next. Follow us on all socials for behind-the-scenes breakdowns, exclusive reactions, and live discussions. And if you want the full unfiltered files, we've got bonus content dropping soon for our members-only feed. This is more than gossip. It's real lives, real consequences, and the real truth. Stay tuned, stay sharp, and most importantly, stay woke.